The US government is selling 300 million worth of Bitcoin. Another Bitcoin wallet that hasn't been active for 11 years moves 30 million worth of Bitcoin. And what happens when a lot of supply hits the market? A crash in the price happens. Let's have a look at the headlines. US government moves nearly 10,000 Bitcoin worth over $300 million related to Silk Road seizure. Or here, sleeping Bitcoin wallet stirs after 11 years, moving over 30 million. Now it's very important to keep these kind of headlines in context. People tend to freak out about headlines like this, but are they really a problem? How big are 300 million or 30 million in the grand scheme of things? Maybe this is as newsworthy as a bag of rice falling over in China. Let's look at the numbers. Look at this. This is the HODL waves on lookintobitcoin.com, and this gets updated every day. And over here we can look at how much Bitcoin hasn't moved for at least 10 years. That's this line over here, and it's currently at roughly 15%. And see how this is constantly moving up. We don't see anything. These kinds of news cannot even be seen in this chart. When we add the 7 to 10 years also, this pretty much only goes up. Only when we add the 5 to 7 year Bitcoin, we sometimes see a blip, right? A little bit of a sell-off every now and then. But really, in aggregate, the Bitcoin that hasn't moved for at least 5 years tends to stay illiquid. So the vast majority of those Bitcoin are either lost or the investors are simply not interested in selling them. Now let's talk about something more fundamental. The main question is, are Bitcoiners really speculating on the price, or are they allocating to Bitcoin as an asset class similar to stocks and bonds and precious metals and property? In other words, over time, if we ignore the Bitcoin that's being lost, is Bitcoin actually becoming more of an investment vehicle, or is the speculation still as high as, say, 5 years ago? To find this out, let's look at the HODL waves on a shorter time period. So let's say how much Bitcoin has moved in the last year. So let's go back to the screen again. So instead of looking at the very long-term Bitcoin, let's look at the very short-term Bitcoin. The Bitcoin that had been traded in the last 24 hours, the last week, the last month, the last 3 months, the last 6 months, and the last year. And see how this is a steadily declining wave. Less and less Bitcoin is being transferred in the last year, or the other way around, more and more Bitcoin is being held long term. There are some waves here, right? Sometimes this is crashing, then it's going slightly up again, then it's crashing. When does this go up? When is more Bitcoin, relatively speaking, as a fraction of all of Bitcoin, actually becoming active? Look at the price. It's when Bitcoin is shooting up. So whenever Bitcoin is shooting up, the long-term holders tend to diversify away again. And that makes intuitive sense. That's not necessarily an expression that people try to ride the waves all the time. This can simply be an expression of rediversifying, of rebalancing a portfolio. If Bitcoin goes up 3, 4, 5x, then suddenly your fraction of your overall portfolio in Bitcoin grows as well. But maybe you don't want to have that much Bitcoin in your overall asset mix. Say you started out with a relatively small fraction, 3% of your whole portfolio being in Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin 10x's. Now you don't want to have 30% of your portfolio in Bitcoin. There is the saying that it makes sense to follow the trend and to let the winners ride, but still you want to somehow be balanced. And so even though you might not sell off all the way to go back again to 3%, you are definitely going to take some chips off the table. And that's probably what we're seeing in the data. We are seeing the long-term investors reallocating and selling it to the new entrants that enter the space, that learned about Bitcoin just recently because of the price increase. Maybe the media is covering it a bit more during those times. And so that's the recipe, right? Buying into Bitcoin regularly, dollar cost averaging in, buying a little bit every month. And then once it rises, because more and more people buy, that's then when you want to potentially offload, when you've got too much allocation within your portfolio. If you're looking for a community of like-minded Bitcoiners, feel free to check out the following, the Bitcoin Strategy channel. Simply search for that within the Telegram chat or click the link down below. I hang around there regularly, looking very much forward to chatting with you. Bye-bye.